The saying of Modeh Ani. Why is it said? What's its source? When did it first start? In what position do we say it? And questions relating to its saying. So, it states in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, which is the first time such a statement has been brought in a codifying work. It's brought both in Madura Kama and the Basra, that upon awakening, even prior to washing hands, it's proper to accustom oneself to say Modeh Ani L'fanecha, Melech V'Kayim, etc. This ruling is not brought in previous Poskim necessarily. It is found in the Berhetiv and recorded also in the Mishnah Berurah. What is the source for this saying, and why do we say it? As we mentioned, it's omitted in the Torah, in the Shulchan Aruch, the Taz, the Magen Avram. So, in Talmudic times, Modeh Ani was not recited. The reason is because one of the purposes of Modeh Ani is to thank Hashem immediately as soon as we wake up for receiving the greatest benefit we possibly can have in having the pleasure to wake up, to be alive again for another day. Now, in the times of the Talmud, before they had impurity on their hands, they were able to say Elikai Neshama as soon as they woke up. And there was no additional thanks added in Modeh Ani that required them to recite Modeh Ani. In other words, as soon as they wake up, they would say Elikai Neshama, and within that, they would be yoytze the statement of Modeh Ani. This explains also the ruling of the Rambam that also does not mention the statement of Modeh Ani, and simply says as soon as one awakens that he should say Elikai Neshama. The first source that mentions the statement of Modeh Ani upon awakening and not Elikai Neshama is the sefer called Seder Hayom. The Seder Hayom was authored by Reb Moshe Makir of Tzfat in the 1600s, and he was a student of the Arizal. This is also recorded in the Siddur Yavitz about 150 years later, in which he writes that there's a sect of later Chassidim that have added on their own words to say Modeh Ani upon awakening. And from there we have testimony in the 1750s of how the saying of Modeh Ani was not a widespread custom. However, today this has become so widespread that it's done by everyone, and it's a basic and foundation of a Jew when he wakes up in the morning. However, this did not used to be the case, as it used to be that people would say Elikai Neshama. Regarding the reasons of why we say Modeh Ani, so there's two reasons recorded. The Alter Rebbe and the Siddur and the Basra records that the reason is, as we mentioned earlier, that one must remember Hashem as soon as he wakes up to help him get out of bed. That remembrance will motivate him to get out of bed. And so too, the statement of Modeh Ani is verbally saying and recognizing Hashem's presence. And that will motivate one to get up with alacrity. Another reason mentioned and expounded on by the Rebbe in a Sikha is that the saying of Modeh Ani is in place of giving the thanks of Elikai Neshama. Now, even though later on we will all say Elikai Neshama, nonetheless, since Elikai Neshama can only be said after an interval of washing hands and going to the bathroom, etc., and therefore the thanks is distanced from the pleasure which you received the moment you woke up. Therefore, we have a statement of Modeh Ani to thank Hashem right away from when we wake up, and then again, when later on, we say it with an actual bracha. The Alter Rebbe writes in the Shulchan Aruch to say Modeh Ani before washing hands. And so is also written in the Siddur of the Alter Rebbe. And recorded in Hayom Yom and in the letter of the Rebbe Rayatz in Chelik Yud, page 23. That Modeh Ani specifically be said before washing. The reason the Alter Rebbe mentions that it is permitted to recite Modeh Ani before washing hands, even though we're not allowed to say Hashem's name beforehand, is because in truth Modeh Ani does not contain Hashem's name, and therefore may be recited beforehand, and it should be recited beforehand in order to thank Hashem as soon as possible, even before washing hands. There are other Poskim, however, such as the Yavitz and the opinion of the Chidan Kesher Agudal and other Poskim, that rule that Modeh Ani should be said only after washing hands. And so is recorded in other Poskim. Regarding if one may say Modeh Ani in the event that there is excrement such as feces on his body or within 4 amas of himself, which is something that can happen when you're sleeping with a child that's already able to eat grain, and his feces forbids one from saying words of Torah. So we find in this matter a machlekes and poskim of today whether doing so is allowed or not, and seemingly it is allowed from the fact we said that it may even be said before al natilas yadayim, and even when your hands are dirty.